The silk sheets felt like a lie against Elena Moretti's skin. She sat curled against Matteo Stephano's bare chest, his arm draped possessively around her waist, and tried to memorize the weight of it. 10 years of silent worship had led to this. His bedroom, his bed, his promises still warm in her mouth. The door swung open without a knock. Lucas Moretti, her foster brother, Matteo's right hand, leaned against the doorframe with a knowing smirk that made Elena's stomach tighten. "Morning, young boss." Lucas's eyes slid to Elena, then back to Matteo. "Didn't waste any time, did you?" Matteo's laugh was low, easy. His fingers traced lazy circles on Elena's hip. Figured it was time. Elena's cheeks burned, but her heart soared. He was telling Lucas about them? About us. Then Matteo switched to Italian, and Elena's world began to crack. "Non male, giovane capo." Lucas grinned wider. "Your first time, and the school's it girl just threw herself at you. So, how's my little sister taste?" Elena's blood turned to ice. Matteo chuckled, the sound vibrating through his chest into her frozen body. "Looks like an angel, but a freak in the sheets. Who would have thought?" The room filled with their laughter. Masculine, careless, cruel. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "So, should I call her my little sister or my future sister-in-law?" Elena felt Matteo's arm tighten around her waist for one brief, hopeful second. Then he let out a sigh that shattered everything. "She's nothing, just practice." His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "I'm trying to hook up with Sylvia Dawson, the cheer captain, but I don't want her thinking I'm clueless in bed. Elena's just a warm-up." He paused. "But don't tell Sylvia. I don't need her getting all emotional." Elena didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't let a single muscle betray that she'd understood every word. 6 months of secret Italian lessons, borrowed textbooks hidden under her mattress, late-night pronunciation videos played through earbuds, conjugations memorized while she'd fantasized about Sunday dinners with the Stefano family, where she'd understand every word, belong to every conversation. She'd learned his language to become part of his world. Instead, she'd learned the truth. Matteo pressed a kiss to her temple, and it felt like a knife. "You okay, Angel? You're quiet." Elena lifted her face to his, let him see the flush in her cheeks, the softness in her eyes, gave him exactly what he expected. "Just happy," she whispered. The lie tasted like copper. Lucas pushed off the doorframe. "So what's the plan? You keeping her around until you seal the deal with Sylvia?" Matteo shrugged, his hand sliding up Elena's spine with practiced ease. "A few more weeks. Maybe take her to graduation, make it look real." "Smart," Lucas nodded. "Dad would approve. Keep your assets manageable, your intentions hidden." Exactly what he taught me. Elena let her head rest against Matteo's shoulder, her hair spilling across his chest. Inside, she was calculating. Caltech. She'd submitted her early decision application 3 months ago. Matteo's school, Matteo's city, Matteo's empire. Computer science program tailored perfectly to support the Stefano family's expanding tech infrastructure. She'd planned her entire future around a man who saw her as practice. Lucas headed for the door. "Graduation's tomorrow night. You taking both of them?" Matteo laughed. "I'm not that stupid." The door clicked shut. Elena counted to 60. Then she slipped out of bed with the grace of someone who'd spent years making herself invisible in foster homes, tiptoeing past dangerous men, surviving by being smart instead of strong. "Where you going?" Matteo's voice was lazy, satisfied. "The bathroom." She grabbed his shirt from the floor, pulled it over her naked body. Let him see her as soft, compliant, his. In the bathroom, she locked the door and stared at her reflection. The girl looking back had bruises blooming on her hips, his fingerprints branded into her skin. Evidence of her stupidity. She turned on the shower to mask the sound of her movements, then pulled out her phone, opened her email, found the acceptance letter from Caltech, and began to type. Dear Caltech Admissions, I am writing to formally withdraw my acceptance and early decision commitment. Elena's hands didn't shake. Not when she hit send, not when she opened a new browser, not when she searched MIT Computer Science regular decision deadline. 48 hours. She had 48 hours to rewrite her future. Behind the bathroom door, Matteo called out, "Are you drowning in there, Angel?" Elena looked at the mirror one last time. The girl staring back wasn't an angel anymore. "Just washing up," she called back, her voice honey-sweet. Then she opened a new application and began to type with the precision of someone who'd learned that survival meant being smarter, faster, more ruthless than the men who thought they owned you. Elena returned to Matteo's bed wearing nothing but his shirt and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. He pulled her back against him, already half asleep, sated and careless. "Stay the night?" he murmured into her hair. "Can't. Foster mom expects me home." The lie came easily now. "After graduation, you won't have to ask permission anymore." His hand splayed across her stomach, possessive. "Yours." The word used to make her heart race. Now it made her skin crawl. "Can't wait," she whispered. She dressed slowly, let him watch, gave him the show he expected. At the door, he caught her wrist, pulled her back for a kiss that tasted like ownership. "Love you, Angel." Elena had waited 10 years to hear those words. Now they meant nothing. "Love you too." The Moretti foster home sat on the edge of Stephano territory, a deliberate placement. Lucas had been placed there at 15, a soldier in training hidden in plain sight. Elena had arrived at 8, an orphan with nowhere else to go, and Lucas had taken one look at her and decided she was useful. The perfect cover, the innocent little sister. She'd been grateful then. Now she understood she'd always been a pawn. Mrs. Moretti was asleep when Elena slipped inside, but Lucas was waiting in the kitchen, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Took you long enough?" Elena didn't respond, just headed for the stairs. "He treating you right?" Lucas's voice stopped her. She turned, studied her foster brother, the only family she'd known for a decade. "He's perfect," she said flatly. Something flickered across Lucas's face, almost like regret. Then it was gone. "Good. Don't fuck it up. This family needs the Stephano alliance. This family. Not her family. Never hers." Elena's bedroom was small, sparse, a foster kid's room, nothing permanent, nothing precious. Perfect. She opened her laptop, pulled up the MIT application portal. Regular decision, computer science, and artificial intelligence. Deadline, 48 hours. She'd already written essays for Caltech, smart ones, good ones. Now she rewrote every word with surgical precision. Not for love, for revenge, for power, for a future where she'd never be anyone's practice again. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Miss you already, Angel. Can't wait to marry you." Elena stared at the message for a long moment. She opened a new search. MIT, Marchetti Family Territory. The Marchettis, Boston's most powerful crime family, the Stephanos' oldest, bloodiest rivals. Elena had grown up in the Stephanos' shadow, but she'd paid attention. The Marchettis controlled Boston. Old money, older grudges, a family tree that stretched back to the original 5 families. Alessandro Marchetti had taken over 5 years ago at 25 when his father was gunned down outside a North End restaurant. He'd retaliated with such calculated brutality that the Stephanos had backed off, unwilling to risk an all-out war. An uneasy truce had held ever since, but truces were fragile things, and Elena had just learned to weaponize her intelligence instead of her innocence. She pulled up MIT's computer science faculty pages, cross-referenced them with published research papers, identified the 3 professors whose work aligned perfectly with Alessandro Marchetti's known business interests. cryptocurrency, blockchain security, encrypted communications. She tailored her application essays to match, not blatantly, not obviously, but enough that the right person, reading carefully, would see a mind worth recruiting. The ceremony was held at the Stephano family compound, a sprawling estate in Westchester that looked like old money but smelled like blood money. Elena arrived in a white dress Matteo had bought her, virginal and soft and his. He met her at the entrance, hands sliding around her waist, lips finding hers with the confidence of ownership. "You look perfect, Angel." Around them, the Stephano family gathered, soldiers in expensive suits, wives dripping in diamonds that represented loyalty and silence, children being groomed for violence from birth. Don Stephano himself stood on the terrace, surveying his kingdom. Matteo's father, the man who'd taught his son that women were assets, not equals. Elena smiled and let Matteo lead her inside. Graduation was less ceremony, more coronation. Matteo Stephano wasn't just graduating high school, he was being formally recognized as the heir, the future Don. The compound's great room had been transformed into a throne room. Elena sat beside Matteo at the head table, his hand possessive on her thigh, and watched the family pay homage. Capos brought gifts, soldiers pledged loyalty, rival families sent envoys with carefully worded congratulations that meant, "We acknowledge your power." And through it all, Matteo played his role perfectly, the prince, the heir, the future king. He introduced Elena to everyone as "my girl," never "my fiancé," never anything permanent. She smiled, nodded, played the adoring girlfriend, and memorized every face, every name, every relationship. Information was currency in this world, and Elena had just started collecting. Sylvia Dawson arrived late, a vision in red that turned every head in the room. Cheer captain, prom queen, daughter of a city councilman in the Stephanos pocket. Perfect Mafia wife material. Elena watched Matteo's eyes track Sylvia across the room, hunger naked in his gaze. His hand tightened on Elena's thigh, an unconscious gesture, keeping his practice girl close while he eye-fucked his real target. "Who's that?" Elena asked, voice soft and innocent. "Sylvia Dawson. Her father's on the city council." Matteo's tone was casual, but his body was tense. Could be useful. Could be useful, the way Elena had been useful once, before she was just practice. Sylvia made her way over, hips swaying, smile calculated. "Matteo!" Her voice was honey and knives. "Congratulations." "Sylvia." He stood, kissed her cheeks, European style, intimate without being obvious. "Glad you could make it." Her eyes slid to Elena. "And who's this?" "Elena Moretti, my friend," Elena interrupted smoothly, extending her hand. "Lucas's foster sister." Sylvia's smile sharpened. "How sweet!" The word dripped condescension. Elena smiled back, calculating the exact angle of Sylvia's jugular. After Sylvia drifted away, Matteo pulled Elena close, his lips at her ear. "Jealous, Angel?" Elena turned her face into his neck, let him feel her breath against his skin. "Should I be?" His laugh was low, pleased. "You're the one in my bed." "For now," Elena thought, "until you don't need me anymore." "I should go soon. MIT's decision deadline is tonight." Matteo stiffened. "MIT? I thought you were going to Caltech." "I was." Elena pulled back, met his eyes with perfect confusion. "But you never actually asked me to follow you. I didn't want to assume." It was beautiful watching him scramble. "Angel, of course I want you at Caltech. I thought that was understood." "Nothing's understood unless it's said clearly. You never actually asked me, Matteo." Around them, the party continued, oblivious. Matteo cupped Elena's face, desperate now. "I'm asking. Come to California with me. Be with me." Elena let the moment stretch. Then she smiled, soft and surrendering. "Okay, I'll withdraw my MIT application." The lie tasted like freedom. At 11:59 p.m., Elena hit submit on her MIT application. At 11:59 p.m., she texted Matteo, "Changed my mind, withdrew from MIT. Caltech confirmed. Can't wait for California with you. Heart." At midnight, she opened her laptop and began phase 2. MIT's computer science department had an emergency contact line for exceptional circumstances. Elena had exceptional circumstances. She composed an email to Professor Richard Chen, head of the IA Ethics Lab, whose research papers she'd memorized, whose work on encrypted blockchain systems was revolutionary, whose funding came from sources that didn't appear on official university documents. Sources that Elena had discovered through 3 hours of deep research traced back to Marchetti family shell corporations. Dear Professor Chen, I submitted my application tonight under regular decision, but I'm writing to bring exceptional circumstances to your attention. She didn't mention the Stephanos by name, didn't need to. She simply outlined her research interests, cryptocurrency security, IA applications in logistics optimization, encrypted communications, and attached a code sample she'd written, a beautiful, elegant algorithm for tracking shipments across multiple jurisdictions without triggering federal monitoring systems. The kind of thing a smart girl might write as an academic exercise, the kind of thing a crime family would pay millions for. Elena's phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Not Matteo, an unknown Boston number. Unknown. Interesting application. Professor Chen forwarded it to our research sponsors. They'd like to speak with you directly. Are you available for a video call tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Elena stared at the message. Tomorrow was graduation. Tomorrow was supposed to be her future with Matteo. Tomorrow was supposed to be the beginning of everything she'd wanted for 10 years. Instead, tomorrow would be the beginning of her revenge. Elena, I'm available. Thank you for the opportunity. She set her phone down. Across the room, her acceptance letter from Caltech sat in the trash bin. By morning, it would be buried under coffee grounds in yesterday's newspapers. Symbolic. Perfect. The ceremony itself was less than anticlimax. Names called, diplomas distributed, caps thrown. Elena walked across the stage in her white dress, accepted her diploma with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and let Matteo sweep her into a kiss that made the crowd whistle. His future, his girl, his practice. Afterwards, there were photos, Matteo's arm around her waist, Lucas grinning beside them, the perfect foster family tableau. Don Stefano himself shook Elena's hand. My son tells me you're joining him at Caltech. Yes, sir. Good. Family should stay close. His grip tightened fractionally. Loyalty is everything in this life. Elena met his eyes without flinching. I understand completely. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded and moved on. Lucas appeared at her elbow. You did good, little sister. Thanks. Matteo's lucky to have you. Elena turned to face her foster brother fully. Am I lucky to have him? Something flickered across Lucas's face. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Elena, I need to go. Video interview for a scholarship in an hour. She walked away before he could respond. Elena set up her laptop in the public library, neutral territory, no family photos visible, nothing that screamed Stephano property. At exactly 3 p.m., the call connected. The man on screen wasn't Professor Chen. He was younger, mid-30s, with sharp features and sharper eyes. Dark hair slicked back, expensive suit, a family ring on his right hand, gold, engraved, old. Miss Moretti. His voice was smooth, cultivated. I'm Marco Toretti, special advisor to MIT's computer science department, and other interests. Elena's pulse kicked up, but her face remained calm. Mr. Toretti, thank you for taking the time. Your code sample was impressive. Self-taught? Mostly. Online courses, library books. No formal instruction? Foster care doesn't typically include coding boot camps. A small smile. No, I suppose it doesn't. He leaned forward. Your algorithm, the shipping logistics one, it's elegant. Almost too elegant for a high school project. Elena met his eyes through the screen. I had motivation to learn. What kind of motivation? The kind that comes from wanting to be useful instead of decorative. Marco's smile widened. You understand the difference? I've lived the difference. Your application mentions Lucas Moretti as your foster brother. Any relation to the Westchester Morettis? Here it was, the moment of truth. Elena could lie, could pretend ignorance, or she could show her cards. Lucas was placed with my foster family as a teenager. I didn't ask questions about his connections, but you noticed them. I notice everything, Mr. Toretti. Marco studied her for a long moment, then closed whatever file he'd been reading and looked directly into the camera. Let's dispense with the academic theater, Miss Moretti. You're smart enough to know this isn't really about a scholarship. Elena's heart hammered, but her expression remained neutral. I'm listening. You submitted an application to MIT, deep in Marchetti territory, while living in Stephano territory. You wrote code that solves problems our organization has been working on for months, and you did it all 48 hours before graduation. He paused. That's either spectacularly naive or spectacularly calculated. Which do you think it is? I think you learned something that made you want out of Westchester very badly. Elena said nothing. I also think, Marco continued, that someone with your intelligence and your connections could be valuable in Boston if you were interested in relocating. I'm interested in getting an education. You'll get one. Full scholarship, living expenses covered, research position in Professor Chen's lab. His eyes glittered. And opportunities for additional income, if you're interested. What kind of opportunities? The kind that value intelligence over innocence, initiative over obedience. He leaned back. The Marchettis appreciate talent, Miss Moretti, especially talent that comes from rival territory. There it was, the explicit acknowledgement. Elena took a slow breath. And if I accept, you'd work with Professor Chen publicly, builds legitimate credentials, and you'd consult on private projects for our other interests. Your other interests? The ones that appreciate your shipping algorithm. Elena looked away from the screen, buying herself time to think. Matteo had used her, humiliated her, planned to discard her. The Stephanos saw her as useful only as long as she was attached to Lucas. She had nothing binding her to Westchester except years of feudal love and foster care paperwork. Or she could go to Boston, enemy territory, work for the Marchettis, become exactly what the Stephanos would fear most, an insider who'd switch sides. Elena looked back at Marco. I want to meet him. Who? Don Marchetti. If I'm going to work for your family, I want to meet the man who runs it. Marco's eyebrows rose. That's not how this typically works. I'm not typical. A long pause. Then Marco nodded slowly. I'll see what I can arrange. But understand, if you meet him, you're committed. The Don doesn't give his time to people who waste it. I won't waste it. One more thing. Marco's expression hardened. If you're playing both sides, if this is some scheme to spy for the Stephanos, you won't just lose the opportunity, you'll lose significantly more. Elena understood the threat. I'm not playing both sides, Mr. Toretti. I'm choosing one. Then welcome to Boston, Miss Moretti. Someone will be in touch about your travel arrangements. The call ended. Elena sat in the library's fluorescent silence, her future rewritten in 15 minutes. Her phone buzzed. Matteo. Dinner at the compound tonight. Dad wants to celebrate. Wear something nice. Love you, Angel. Elena stared at the message. Then she began to type. Elena wore red to dinner. Not white, not soft, not his. Matteo noticed immediately. That's new. Graduation present to myself. She kissed him lightly. Do you like it? His hand slid down her hips, possessive. I love it, though I'd love it more in my bedroom floor. Elena smiled and let him lead her inside. The compound was full tonight, the inner circle celebrating Matteo's graduation and unofficial coronation. Don Stefano at the head of the table, Matteo at his right hand, Elena beside Matteo. Lucas across from them, watching with unreadable eyes. Sylvia Dawson seated strategically near Matteo's left, close enough to be noticed, far enough to maintain deniability. Elena saw the whole chessboard now. She was the pawn, Sylvia was the queen, and Matteo was too arrogant to realize he was about to lose both. Halfway through dinner, Don Stefano stood, glass raised. "To my son, the future of this family." "Salute," the room echoed. Matteo stood, accepting the honor with practiced grace. "I won't let you down, Dad." "I know you won't." Don Stefano's eyes swept the table. "You've learned what I taught you, that power requires sacrifice, that loyalty must be tested, that nothing, not women, not money, not even blood, comes before family." His gaze landed on Elena for a brief, dismissive second, then moved on. She'd been tested, she'd been found useful, and the moment she stopped being useful, she'd be discarded. Elena lifted her glass with everyone else, smiled when expected, and counted the hours until she could leave. 24 hours. That's all she needed. 24 hours to extract herself from the Stephano web without raising suspicion. Then she'd disappear into Marchetti territory, and by the time Matteo realized what had happened, she'd be untouchable. After dinner, Matteo pulled Elena toward his bedroom. "Stay tonight." "Can't. Early morning tomorrow. Financial aid paperwork for Caltech." A lie, but a plausible one. Matteo's grip tightened. "Blow it off. Stay with me." Elena turned in his arms. Let him see softness instead of steel. "I want to, but if I don't handle this stuff, I might lose my scholarship. My family will pay for school. Your family doesn't know me yet. I don't want to start our life together by being a burden." It was exactly what he wanted to hear. A woman who understood her place, who wouldn't demand too much, who'd be grateful for whatever scraps he offered. Matteo kissed her, hard and claiming. "Fine, but tomorrow night you're mine. No excuses." Tomorrow night. Another lie. Tomorrow night she'd be on a train to Boston. Elena returned to the Foster house for the last time. Mrs. Moretti was at bingo. Lucas was out, probably with Matteo, celebrating. Elena packed methodically. Laptop, chargers, documents, birth certificate, social security card, the few things that proved she existed. Clothes, not many, she'd buy new ones in Boston. Money, she'd been saving for years. Babysitting money, birthday money, cash she'd skimmed from Lucas's wallet when he was too drunk to notice. $3,000 in small bills, hidden in a tampon box because men never looked there. Enough for a train ticket, first month's rent, food until her MIT stipend kicked in. She left a note on her pillow. "Got early acceptance to a summer program. Leaving for campus tonight. Thanks for everything. Elena." Vague, plausible, forgettable. By the time anyone questioned it, she'd be gone. Elena took one last look at the room that had been hers for 10 years. Then she walked out and didn't look back. The train to Boston left at midnight. Elena bought her ticket with cash, used a fake name, sat in the back where cameras wouldn't catch her clearly. As the train pulled away from Grand Central, her phone buzzed. "Matteo, miss you already. Can't wait for California. You're going to love it there." Elena turned off her phone, removed the SIM card, dropped it in a trash can. Outside the window, New York blurred into darkness. She'd spent 10 years loving Matteo Stephano, 48 hours hating him, and now she was done with both. Elena arrived at South Station at dawn. The city was waking up around her. Coffee shops opening, businessmen in expensive suits heading to work, tourists consulting maps. She found a cheap hotel in Cambridge, paid cash for 3 nights, and collapsed onto the bed. Her phone buzzed. The new one she'd bought at Penn Station with a prepaid SIM. Unknown. "Welcome to Boston. MIT orientation is in 2 weeks. Before then, the Don would like to meet you. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Address to follow. Come alone. MT." Elena stared at the message. Then she got up, showered, and began preparing for the most important meeting of her life. Back in Westchester, Lucas Moretti stood in Elena's empty bedroom, reading her note. Something was wrong. He'd raised Elena, knew her tells, knew when she was lying, and this note reeked of lies. He called Matteo. When's the last time you saw Elena? Last night at dinner. Why? She's gone. Left a note about some summer program. Silence on the other end. Then, what summer program? Exactly. Lucas's jaw tightened. She never mentioned any program to you. No, she was supposed to handle financial aid stuff for Caltech today. I'm calling the foster agency. Lucas hung up and dialed. 10 minutes later, he had his answer. No summer program, no early campus housing, no communication from Elena in weeks. She disappeared, voluntarily. Lucas called Matteo back. We have a problem. Don Stephano's office was dark wood and old money, a throne room disguised as a study. Matteo stood before his father's desk, jaw tight. Explain. Elena's gone, left sometime last night. The Moretti girl. Don Stephano's voice was dangerously calm. Lucas's foster sister. Yes. The one you've been fucking. It wasn't a question. Matteo nodded tersely. Don Stephano leaned back in his chair. Did you tell her anything? Family business? No, nothing. She was just what? Just a girl, Dad. Nothing important. Then why do you look like you've lost something valuable? Matteo didn't answer. Don Stephano's eyes narrowed. Find her, quietly. If she's just run off to be dramatic, bring her back and remind her what loyalty means. If she's done something stupid, he paused. Make sure it doesn't become a problem. Yes, sir. And Matteo, Don Stephano's voice dropped. Next time, keep your dick out of complications. Use professionals if you need practice. Family friends are liabilities. Matteo left the office with his pride shattered and his rage building. Elena had made him look weak. That was unforgivable. Elena spent the day in Cambridge learning the city. MIT's campus, the surrounding neighborhoods, Marchetti territory, marked by subtle signs if you knew what to look for. Restaurants with Italian names owned by the right families, legitimate businesses that laundered money, streets where cops didn't patrol too closely. She walked until her feet ached, memorizing escape routes and safe spaces. At 5 p.m., she returned to her hotel and dressed carefully. Not sexy, not innocent. Professional. Black pants, white blouse, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She wanted Alessandro Marchetti to see her as an asset, not a conquest. At 6:30 p.m., a car arrived, a black Lincoln with tinted windows. Marco Toretti stepped out. Miss Moretti, ready? Elena nodded and climbed into the back seat. They drove in silence through Boston's North End, past restaurants and bakeries that had been family-owned for generations, into a residential neighborhood where houses cost millions but looked unassuming. Old money, old power. The car stopped in front of a brownstone that looked like every other on the block, except for the two men standing outside, earpieces visible, guns hidden but obvious. One rule, Marco said as he opened her door. Don't lie to him. He'll know, and he doesn't give second chances. Elena stepped out of the car. I don't plan to lie. Alessandro Marchetti was not what Elena expected. She'd anticipated someone older, 50, maybe 60, with the weight of decades in power. Instead, the man who rose from behind the mahogany desk was 20 at most, with sharp features that could have been carved from marble, and eyes that saw everything. He wore a suit that cost more than Elena's entire life savings, a family ring on his right hand, gold, engraved with a crest she'd memorized from her research. This was the man who took over the Marchetti empire at 25, who'd retaliated against his father's killers with such calculated brutality that rival families still whispered about it, who'd maintained an uneasy truce with the Stephanos for 5 years through sheer force of will and strategic violence. Miss Moretti, his voice was cultured, educated, Dartmouth undergrad, Harvard Law. Sit. Not a request. Elena sat. Alessandro remained standing, studying her with the intensity of a man used to reading people's secrets. Marco tells me you wrote an encryption algorithm in 48 hours that my best programmers couldn't crack in 6 months. I had motivation. What kind of motivation makes a high school girl from Stephano territory suddenly interested in Boston? Here it was. truth or consequences. Elena met his eyes without flinching, the kind that comes from learning your boyfriend thinks you're practice. Alessandro's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Interest. Explain. Elena told him everything. Not emotionally, not dramatically, clinically. 10 years of silent love, one night of believing it was real, one morning of discovering the truth. She recited Matteo's words in Italian, "She's nothing, just practice," and watched Alessandro's jaw tighten fractionally. "So you ran," he said when she finished. "I relocated to enemy territory, to the only territory where the Stephanos can't touch me." Alessandro walked around his desk, leaned against it, arms crossed. "And what do you want from me, Miss Moretti? Protection? Revenge? Money?" "Opportunity." That surprised him. I saw it in the slight raise of his eyebrows. "Opportunity? I'm smart. You saw my code. I can be useful to you, legitimately through MIT, and less legitimately through consulting work." Elena leaned forward. "I don't want protection. I want power, the kind that means no man will ever see me as practice again. Power isn't given, Miss Moretti. It's taken. Then teach me how to take it." Silence stretched between them. Alessandro studied her with new intensity. "You understand what you're asking, working for my family while living on enemy territory. If they find out, they'll kill me, I know. And are you willing to risk that?" "I'm already risking it. The moment I walked into this house, I became a traitor to the Stephanos." Elena held his gaze. "At least working for you, I'll be a traitor with a purpose." Alessandro pushed off the desk, walked to the window overlooking his territory. "I lost my father 5 years ago," he said quietly. "Shot outside a restaurant where we'd eaten every Sunday since I was a child. The Giovannis thought killing him would destabilize the family, create a power vacuum they could exploit." He turned to face Elena. "Instead, I spent 2 weeks hunting every man involved, made sure their families watched, made sure everyone understood that Marchetti blood doesn't wash away easily." His voice was ice. "I rebuilt this empire on fear and respect, and I don't tolerate weakness." "I'm not weak." "No," he studied her. "You're angry, and anger can be useful, or it can be destructive. It can also be motivating." A ghost of a smile. "True." Alessandro walked back to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a folder. "Marco ran a background check. You're a foster kid, no family, no connections. Perfect GPA despite bouncing between 6 homes in 10 years. You taught yourself Italian and coding. You've been invisible your whole life." He closed the folder. "I can make you visible, Miss Moretti. But visibility comes with responsibility, expectations. And if you fail me," he didn't finish the threat. "Didn't need to." "I won't fail you." "Then we have a deal." He extended his hand. Elena shook it, felt the calluses that proved he wasn't just a businessman. "Welcome to the Marchetti family, Elena." It was the first time he'd used her first name. It felt like a brand. MIT orientation was a blur of paperwork and policy. Elena moved into a dorm in Cambridge, unpacked her few belongings, and tried to look like every other nervous freshman. But she wasn't like the others. While they worried about classes and parties, Elena worried about staying alive. Marco Toretti became her handler, checking in weekly, delivering assignments, teaching her the rules of her new world. Rule number 1. Never contact anyone from your old life. Rule number 2, MIT is your cover. Maintain perfect grades, perfect attendance, perfect normalcy. Rule number 3, the consulting work comes first, always. Elena followed every rule with religious precision. She excelled in Professor Chen's AI lab, writing code that pushed boundaries while staying technically legal. And she consulted on private projects, encryption systems, logistics algorithms, communications networks that couldn't be traced. She never asked what they were for, didn't need to. She was building infrastructure for a criminal empire, and she was brilliant at it. 2 months into her freshman year, Lucas found her. Elena was leaving the library when he appeared, leaning against her dorm building, looking like he'd been waiting for hours. "Hey, little sister." Elena's blood turned cold. "Lucas." "That's it? 2 months gone and all I get is Lucas?" He pushed off the wall, walked toward her. "Matteo's been losing his mind. Dad's had people looking everywhere." "I left a note." "A bullshit note." Lucas stopped 3 feet away. "What happened, Elena? One day you're planning a future with Matteo, the next you're ghost." She could tell him the truth, could watch his face when he realized she'd understood every word of that morning conversation, but the truth was a weapon she wasn't ready to use yet. "I got a better offer." Lucas's eyes narrowed. "What kind of offer?" "The kind that didn't involve being someone's backup plan." Understanding flickered across his face. "You heard." Elena said nothing. "Fuck," ran a hand through his hair. "That morning, you understood every word." Lucas took a step closer. "Elena, you have to come back. Matteo's..." "Matteo's what? Sorry, please?" Elena's voice was cold. "He's sorry he lost his practice girl before hooking up with Sylvia? Sorry he got caught?" "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that." She crossed her arms. "And I'm done, Lucas. Done with the Stephanos, done with Westchester, done with being useful only when it's convenient." "You don't understand what you've done. Leaving like that, it looks bad, like you're hiding something." "I am hiding something. Self-respect." "Elena, how did you find me?" Lucas hesitated. "Matteo had connections at MIT, started looking into new students from New York. Your name showed up." Which meant the Stephanos knew where she was, which meant Alessandro needed to know. "Tell Matteo I'm not coming back." "He won't accept that." "Then he'll have to learn to accept failure." Elena turned toward her dorm. "Goodbye, Lucas. You're in Marchetti territory." She froze. Lucas's voice dropped. "You think I didn't notice? MIT, Boston, the way you've gone dark, you're working for them, aren't you?" Elena turned slowly. "That's a dangerous accusation." "It's the truth." They stared at each other. Foster siblings who'd never really been family, connected by convenience, and now divided by choice. "If you tell Matteo, I'll disappear, and you'll never find me again. And if I don't, then maybe we can both move on." Lucas studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once and walked away. Elena watched him go, then pulled out her phone. "Elena, we have a problem. -E." Alessandro Marchetti's response was immediate. "Alessandro, my office, 1 hour." Elena took an Uber to the North End, walking the last 3 blocks to avoid being tracked. The brownstone was quiet tonight, no visible guards, but she felt eyes watching from windows. Marco let her in. Alessandro was waiting in his study, a glass of scotch in his hand. "Lucas Moretti found you." Not a question. "Yes." "Did you tell him anything?" "No, but he guessed I'm working for you." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "Is he going to report back?" "I don't know." "That's not good enough, Elena." She met his eyes. "He's my foster brother. He raised me. If I say kill him..." "I'm not asking you to say it. I'm telling you what happens if he becomes a liability." The words hung between them, heavy, final. Elena swallowed hard. "Give me 48 hours to figure out where his loyalty lies." 48 hours, Alessandro set down his glass. "After that, I handle it my way." Elena nodded and turned to leave. "Elena." She stopped. How did it feel, seeing him after all this time? She considered the question. "Like looking at a stranger who used to matter." Alessandro smiled, cold, approving. "Good. Sentiment is a luxury we can't afford." Elena called Lucas from a burner phone. "Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., Cambridge Common, just you. Elena, just you, Lucas, or I disappear. She hung up. Then she called Marco. I need surveillance. Cambridge Common, tomorrow, 2 p.m. If Lucas brings anyone, Stephanos soldiers, Matteo, anyone, I need to know immediately. You're setting a trap. I'm finding out whose side he really is on. And if he's on theirs, Elena's voice didn't waver, then Alessandro handles it his way. Cambridge Common was crowded at 2 p.m., students, tourists, families enjoying the fall weather, perfect for a clandestine meeting. Elena sat on a bench facing the statue of Washington, watching the crowd. Lucas appeared at exactly 2 p.m.
Alone. No earpiece, no visible backup. Either he was being honest or he was very good at hiding his surveillance. He sat beside her, hands in his pockets. I didn't tell Matteo. Why not? Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Because you're right. He used you, and I let him because it was convenient for the family. He turned to face her. I'm sorry, Elena. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I know. He pulled something from his pocket, a burner phone. But maybe this does. Elena took it, turned it over in her hands. What is this? Matteo's been planning something. I don't know what yet, but he's obsessed with finding you, convinced you know something or took something or... Lucas shook his head. He's not thinking straight. What do you want me to do with this? Protect yourself. Lucas stood. I can't stop him, but I can give you a heads up when he makes his move. Elena studied him, this man who'd been brother and stranger, protector and jailer. Why are you helping me? Because I watched you grow up believing you'd only be valuable if some man chose you, and I fed that lie by pushing you towards Matteo. Lucas's voice cracked slightly. You deserve better, little sister, even if it means betraying my family to give it to you. He walked away before Elena could respond. She sat on the bench for another 20 minutes, processing. Then she called Alessandro. Lucas is an asset, not a threat. He's willing to feed us information on Matteo's movements. Can you trust him? Elena looked at the burner phone in her hand. Yes. Then use him. Carefully. Fall semester became a careful dance. Elena maintained perfect grades, built relationships with professors, published a paper on encryption protocols that got national attention. Publicly, she was the MIT success story, foster kid made good, brilliant young mind in computer science. Privately, she was building Alessandro Marchetti's digital empire. New communication systems that couldn't be tapped, logistics software that tracked shipments across borders without triggering federal monitoring, financial algorithms that laundered money through legitimate tech startups. She was brilliant, and Alessandro noticed. He started requesting private briefings, just the two of them, late at night in his study, going over code and strategy. Marco noticed the shift. Be careful, Elena. Careful of what? The Don doesn't give his attention lightly, and when he does, Marco trailed off. I'm not interested in him like that. I'm not talking about your interest. I'm talking about his. Elena absorbed that warning, tried to maintain professional distance, but Alessandro made it difficult. It started small. Alessandro asking about her day, noticing when she looked tired, having Marco deliver coffee to her dorm before exams. Then it escalated. Stay for dinner, Alessandro said one night after a briefing. I have work. It wasn't a request, Elena. They ate in his private dining room, just the two of them, served by staff who knew to be invisible. The conversation was easy, surprisingly, not about business or code, about books, music, the lives they'd had before power consumed them. My father wanted me to be a lawyer, legitimate, respectable. And you wanted? To survive. He met her eyes. In this world, legitimacy is a luxury. Survival is a necessity. Is that what I am? A survival strategy? You're an asset who's becoming something more complicated. Elena's pulse kicked up. More complicated how? Alessandro didn't answer directly. Instead, he stood, walked around the table, stopped behind her chair. His hand settled on her shoulder, warm, heavy, possessive. "You're smart enough to know you're walking a dangerous line, Elena. Working for my family, living in my territory, sitting at my table. And I respect intelligence, but I reward loyalty." His fingers traced her collarbone, a touch that could be casual or calculated. Elena's breath caught. What kind of reward? The kind that makes you untouchable. He stepped back before she could respond, the moment charged and unfinished. "Marco will drive you back to campus." Elena left with her heart racing and her mind spinning. The shift after that dinner was undeniable. Alessandro's attention intensified, no longer just professional interest, but something darker, more consuming. He found excuses to see her. Briefings that could have been emails, strategy sessions that lasted hours beyond necessary, dinners that blurred from business into something intimate. And Elena, despite her best intentions, found herself drawn to him. Not the way she'd loved Matteo, soft and hopeful and naive. This was different, darker, edged with danger and desire and the heady rush of power. Alessandro was everything Matteo pretended to be. Powerful, intelligent, ruthless. But unlike Matteo, Alessandro saw Elena as an equal, a partner, something precious. "You're playing with fire," Marco warned one night when Marco picked up Elena from the brownstone at 2 a.m. "I know. The Don doesn't do relationships. He does possessions." "I'm not his possession." Marco shot her a look. "Not yet." It happened 3 months into Elena's freshman year. She was leaving Professor Chen's lab when Matteo appeared. Not Lucas this time. Matteo himself, looking older, harder, angrier. "Elena." She froze. Calculated her exits. They were in a public building, cameras everywhere, students passing by. Safe enough. "Matteo?" He closed the distance between them, grabbed her arm. 2 fucking months, Elena. I've been looking for you for 2 fucking months." Students turned to stare. She kept her voice calm. "Let go of me." "Not until we talk." "There's nothing to talk about." His grip tightened, bruising. "I deserve an explanation." "You deserve nothing." Something flickered across his face. Shock, maybe, that she'd changed so much. The Elena he knew would never talk back. "I loved you," Matteo hissed. "I was going to marry you." "You loved having someone worship you. There's a difference." "That's not—" "She's nothing, just practice." Elena repeated his words in perfect Italian. "I'm trying to hook up with the cheer captain, but I don't want her thinking I'm clueless in bed." Matteo's face went white. "You understood?" "Every word." "Why didn't you say anything?" Elena yanked her arm free. "Because I was stupid enough to think maybe I'd misheard, maybe I'd misunderstood." Her voice dropped to ice. "But I didn't. You used me, Matteo, and I'm done." She walked away. Matteo followed. "Elena, wait!" A hand landed on Matteo's shoulder. Marco Toretti appeared from nowhere, face pleasant but eyes dead. "I think the lady said she's done." Matteo jerked away. "Who the fuck are you?" "Someone who respects boundaries." Matteo's eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. "You're Marchetti." Marco smiled. "Good instincts. Now leave before those instincts fail you." Matteo looked between Marco and Elena. Understanding crashed over his face like cold water. "You're working for them? Jesus Christ, Elena! You're working for the Marchettis?" Elena said nothing. Matteo's shock twisted into rage. "My father will—" "Will do nothing," Marco interrupted smoothly. "Miss Moretti is under Don Marchetti's protection. Touching her would be an act of war." "You fucking traitor," Matteo spat at Elena. "I learned from the best," she shot back. Matteo stormed off, fury radiating from every line of his body. Marco turned to Elena. "You need to come with me, now." Alessandro was waiting at the brownstone, pacing like a caged animal.
Matteo Stephano was on my territory, near you. I handled it. Marco handled it. Alessandro stopped pacing, faced her. You should have called me the second he appeared. I was in public. I don't care if you were in the middle of fucking mass. You call me. His voice was steel. Do you understand how this looks? A Stephano heir confronting you in my territory, and you don't immediately alert me? Elena's temper flared. I'm not your property, Alessandro. In this world, yes, you are. He closed the distance between them, crowding her space. I claimed protection over you. That means you're mine to protect, mine to defend, mine. The word hung between them, heavy with implications. Elena lifted her chin, refusing to back down. I won't be owned twice. I'm not Matteo. Then stop acting like him. Alessandro's jaw clenched. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, low and dark, and almost admiring. You've got spine, Elena Moretti. I'll give you that. I learned it from you. Did you? You taught me power isn't given, it's taken. She stepped closer, matching his intensity. So I'm taking mine, even from you. Something ignited in Alessandro's eyes, hunger and respect, and something more dangerous. Careful, Elena. You're walking a very thin line right now. I've been walking a thin line since the day I arrived in Boston. True, he reached out, traced her jawline with one finger. But this is different. How? Because now I'm deciding whether to punish you or kiss you. Elena's breath caught. Which are you leaning toward? Both. He kissed her. It wasn't soft, wasn't gentle. Alessandro kissed Elena like he did everything else, with absolute authority and zero hesitation. His hand fisted in her hair, angling her head exactly where he wanted it. His body pressed her against his desk, trapped and claimed. And Elena, despite everything, kissed him back. Not submission, challenge. She bit his lower lip, hard enough to sting. Alessandro growled, deep into the kiss, his free hand gripping her hip with bruising force. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. This is a terrible idea, Elena whispered. Probably. You're my employer. Technically, you're my contractor. That doesn't make it better. No, Alessandro's thumb traced her swollen lips, but it makes it interesting. Elena should have pushed him away, should have established boundaries, should have protected herself the way she'd learned to protect herself from Matteo. Instead, she pulled Alessandro back down and kissed him again. They didn't sleep together that night. Alessandro pulled back with visible effort, putting physical distance between them. Not like this. Like what? With you confused about whether you want me or want revenge on Stefano. Elena stiffened. That's not, isn't it? Alessandro's eyes were knowing. You spent 10 years wanting Matteo, 2 months hating him, and now you're here in my house kissing me back because it feels like power. You don't know what I feel. I know you're brilliant and angry and looking for something to fill the space Matteo left. I won't be that. When I have you, Elena, it'll be because you want me. Not revenge, not safety, not power. What if I want it all? Then figure out which matters most, because I don't share and I don't compete with ghosts. He called for Marco to drive her back to campus. Elena left with her lips still tingling and her heart in chaos. Elena threw herself into work, classes, research, consulting projects for Alessandro's family. She avoided the brownstone when possible, communicated through Marco, kept everything professional. Alessandro didn't push, didn't demand, just waited, like a predator who knew his prey would eventually come to him. Meanwhile, the burner phone Lucas had given her started buzzing with warnings. Lucas, Matteo knows where you are. He's planning something. Be careful. Lucas, Dad's getting involved. This is escalating beyond just Matteo. Lucas, Stefano family meeting tonight. Your name came up. Stay alert. Elena forwarded every message to Marco, who forwarded them to Alessandro. The Marchetti family began preparing for possible conflict, increased security, strategic positioning of soldiers, quiet conversations with allied families. And through it all, Elena kept her head down and her code sharp. Winter break arrived with bitter cold and empty campus. Most students went home. Elena had nowhere to go. She stayed in her dorm, worked on projects, tried not to think about Christmases past, foster homes that never felt like home, holidays that reminded her she didn't belong anywhere. On Christmas Eve, Marco appeared at her door. "The Don requests your presence for dinner." "Tell him I'm busy." "Elena," Marco's voice was gentle, "he's not asking as your employer. He's asking as someone who doesn't want you alone on Christmas." That broke through her defenses. "Fine, give me 20 minutes. The brownstone was decorated, subtle, elegant, expensive. Alessandro waited in his dining room, dressed casually in dark slacks and a sweater that made him look almost human. Almost. "You came." Marco made it sound important. "It is." Alessandro pulled out her chair. "Sit." Dinner was Italian, traditional Christmas Eve, 7 fishes, each course perfect. They ate in companionable silence for a while. Then Alessandro spoke. "I spent my first Christmas after my father died alone in this house, refused to see family, refused to celebrate." He set down his fork. "It was the loneliest night of my life." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I recognize that look in your eyes, Elena, that I don't belong anywhere look. You belong here, in Boston, in my territory, at my table." "As what? Your contractor? Your whatever this is?" "As someone I respect, someone I want." Elena's heart hammered. "You said you wouldn't compete with Matteo's ghost." "I'm not competing, I'm claiming." Alessandro stood, walked to Elena's side of the table. "I've been patient, Elena, given you space to figure out what you want, but my patience has limits." He pulled her to her feet, hands framing her face. "Tell me right now, do you want me, or are you still holding on to some fantasy of what Matteo could have been?" Elena looked into Alessandro's eyes, dark, intense, absolutely certain of what he was offering. Power, protection, partnership, and something more dangerous. "I want you," Elena whispered. "Then stop running." He kissed her, and this time Elena didn't hold back. They didn't make it to a bedroom. Alessandro lifted Elena onto the dining table, scattered dishes crashing to the floor, and claimed her with the same ruthless precision he applied to everything. This wasn't Matteo's practiced seduction, wasn't soft or sweet or safe. Alessandro touched Elena like she was his, absolutely, irrevocably, dangerously his. And Elena met his intensity with her own, hands fisted in his hair, nails scraping down his back, breath ragged and desperate. She'd spent 10 years wanting to belong to Matteo. Now she understood the difference between wanting to belong and choosing to surrender. Afterwards, they lay tangled on the floor of his study, silk rug beneath them, fireplace casting shadows across bare skin. Alessandro traced the bruises blooming on Elena's hips, his fingerprints, just like Matteo's had been months ago. But these felt different. These felt like a claim she'd accepted instead of one forced upon her. "You're mine now," Alessandro murmured against her throat. "Say it." "I'm yours." "Completely?" Elena turned her head, met his eyes. "Completely." Elena woke in Alessandro's bed, massive, expensive, surrounded by evidence of wealth and power. Alessandro was already awake, watching her with an intensity that should have been unsettling. Instead, it felt inevitable. "Regrets?" he asked. "No." "Good." He traced her spine with one finger. "Because there's no going back from this, Elena. You're mine. My family knows it. Soon, everyone will. Including the Stephanos." "Especially the Stephanos." Alessandro's smile was cold. "Matteo needs to understand he lost, permanently."
Elena should have felt guilty, should have worried about the consequences. Instead, she felt powerful.
What happens now? Now, Alessandro pulled her closer. Now we make you untouchable. Alessandro didn't announce their relationship publicly. He didn't need to. In the Marchetti world, actions spoke louder than words. Elena moved out of her dorm into a brownstone 2 blocks from Alessandro's, purchased, secured, staffed. She attended family dinners at the main house, sat at Alessandro's right hand, and learned the hierarchy through observation. Capos brought their respect. Soldiers acknowledged her authority. Wives whispered behind their hands, but never to her face. She was Don Marchetti's woman. That made her untouchable and terrifying. Spring semester, Elena's reputation at MIT solidified. She published 2 more papers, accepted a research position that came with a substantial stipend, made connections with professors whose work aligned suspiciously well with Marchetti interests. No one at MIT knew who she really was. To them, she was just another brilliant student. But in Alessandro's world, she was becoming something more. A strategist, a problem solver, the woman who could make technology serve violence without leaving digital fingerprints. Professor Chen pulled her aside one day. "You're getting attention, Miss Moretti, the kind that comes with opportunities." "What kind of opportunities?" "The kinds where people want to hire you before you even graduate." Elena smiled. "I already have a job, Professor." Chen's eyes gleamed knowingly. "Yes, I suspect you do." The burner phone Lucas had given Elena buzzed constantly now. "Lucas, Matteo's father knows about you and Marchetti. It's bad, Elena." "Lucas, family meeting called. Your name's on the agenda." "Lucas, they're calling you a traitor, talking about examples." "Lucas, get out of Boston, now. They're coming for you." Elena forwarded everything to Alessandro. His response was immediate. "Alessandro, increase security at your brownstone. Don't go anywhere alone. Trust no one except Marco." "Alessandro, let them come." It started small. Elena's brownstone was vandalized, windows broken, walls spray-painted with Traditoro, traitor. Her car was torched. A student at MIT, someone Elena had never met, warned her that some guys from New York had been asking about her schedule. The Stephanos were escalating, and Alessandro responded with controlled fury. A Stephano lieutenant was found beaten outside a restaurant in neutral territory, alive but barely. A message was delivered to Don Stephano. Touch her again, and the next one dies. The temperature between families reached critical. Elena sat in Alessandro's study while he paced, Marco standing guard by the door. "This is escalating toward war," Marco said quietly. "Then we go to war." Alessandro's voice was flat. "Over one girl?" "Over my girl." Alessandro stopped pacing, faced Marco with absolute authority. "She's under my protection. That's not negotiable." "The other families won't back us if this is personal. Then we handle it ourselves." Elena had been silent through this exchange, processing. Now she spoke. "What if I talk to Matteo?" Both men turned to stare at her. "Absolutely not," Alessandro said immediately. "Hear me out. He's escalating because he feels disrespected, like I embarrassed him." Elena stood. "What if I give him a way to save face?" "By doing what?" "By apologizing." Alessandro crossed the room in 3 strides, gripped Elena's arms. "You have nothing to apologize for." "I know that. You know that. But if I apologize publicly, at some neutral meeting, witnessed by both families, Matteo gets his pride back. The situation de-escalates. And you look weak." "I look strategic." Elena met his eyes. "Isn't that what you taught me? That survival matters more than pride." Alessandro's jaw clenched. "I don't like it." "You don't have to like it. You just have to trust me." The meeting was arranged for neutral territory, a restaurant in Queens owned by neither family. Elena insisted on going alone. Alessandro refused. They compromised. Elena would meet Matteo inside. Alessandro and Marco would wait outside with a full security detail. The restaurant was empty except for Elena, Matteo, and Lucas. Matteo looked different, harder, older, dangerous in ways he hadn't been in high school. Elena. Matteo. They sat across from each other like enemies at a negotiation, which Elena supposed they were. You wanted to talk? Matteo said coldly. Talk. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air. Matteo's eyes narrowed. Sorry for what? For leaving the way I did, for not giving you an explanation, for... Elena swallowed her pride. For embarrassing you in front of your family. You're sorry for embarrassing me. Matteo's voice was dangerous. Not for fucking my rival, not for betraying my family, just for embarrassing me? Yes. Matteo laughed, sharp, cruel. You really think I'm that stupid? That this is about my pride? Elena's pulse kicked up. Isn't it? No, Elena, this is about the fact that you're a traitor, and traitors don't get to apologize and walk away. He nodded to Lucas, and Lucas, her foster brother, her protector, pulled a gun. Lucas, Elena's voice cracked. I'm sorry, little sister, but family comes first. The door behind Elena burst open. Alessandro and Marco stormed in, weapons drawn. The restaurant exploded into chaos. Stephanos soldiers appeared from nowhere, the kitchen, back rooms, hidden behind the bar. The neutral meeting had been a trap, and Elena had walked straight into it. Gunfire erupted. Alessandro grabbed Elena, threw her to the ground, covered her body with his. Stayed down. Glass shattered, wood splintered. Someone screamed. Elena couldn't tell whose side they were on. Then, as suddenly as it started, the shooting stopped. When the smoke cleared, 3 men were dead. 2 Stephano soldiers, 1 Marchetti. Matteo was gone, escaped through the kitchen. Lucas lay on the floor bleeding from his shoulder, gun beside him. Alessandro stood over him, weapon pressed to his forehead. Give me one reason not to end you right now. Elena, no. Elena struggled to her feet, grabbed his arm. Please. He tried to kill you. He aimed for my shoulder. Elena looked at Lucas, saw the truth in his eyes. If he wanted me dead, I'd be dead. Alessandro's finger stayed on the trigger. That doesn't make him innocent. No, but it makes him useful. Elena turned to Lucas. Tell me why you missed. Lucas coughed blood. Because you're still my sister, even if you're also a traitor. Touching, Alessandro said flatly. Now you die for betraying our truce. Wait, Elena had an idea. Dangerous, but potentially brilliant. What if he didn't betray us? Both men stared at her. What if Lucas becomes our inside man, feeds us information on Stephano plans? He'll never betray his family, Alessandro said flatly. Elena met Lucas's eyes. Won't you? You already betrayed them once by warning me, by aiming for my shoulder instead of my heart. Lucas was silent for a long moment.
Then, what's in it for me? Protection. When this war ends, and it will end, you'll need somewhere to go, someone to vouch for you. Elena crouched beside him. Help us, and Alessandro will protect you. Why would I trust Marchetti protection? Because unlike the Stephanos, we don't see loyalty as blind obedience. Elena glanced at Alessandro. Right? Alessandro looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he lowered his weapon. You feed us information, real information, not bullshit designed to trap us again. You do that, and when this is over, you walk away alive. Lucas considered, then nodded. Deal. Alessandro's men dragged Lucas out to get medical attention. Marco began coordinating cleanup. Elena and Alessandro were left alone in the destroyed restaurant. Alessandro turned to Elena, fury and fear warring on his face. You could have died tonight. But I didn't. Because I covered you, because Marco was fast, because we got lucky. He gripped her shoulders. This is what loving you means, Elena. Walking into traps, bleeding for you, killing for you. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you've become to me? Elena reached up, touched his face, smudged with gunpowder and blood that might have been his or someone else's. I understand that you're running out of ways to keep me safe without keeping me captive. And you are running out of reasons to fight me when fighting feels like the only thing keeping you alive. They stared at each other. 2 people caught in a war neither had wanted, but both were willing to finish. Subscribe.
Alessandro murmured, pressing his forehead to hers. Because the people who stay for this kind of darkness understand that the most dangerous thing you can do is fall for someone who was never supposed to let you live. Elena kissed him, hard, desperate, tasting danger and devotion. When they broke apart, her voice was steady. Then let's finish this, together. The failed trap changed everything. The Stephanos had violated neutral ground, attempted murder during a truce meeting. In the underworld, that meant open season. Alessandro called a meeting of the 5 families. Elena sat beside him, not behind, not separate, beside, equal. The other Dons noticed. This is the girl? Don Carlisi, Boston's second most powerful family, studied Elena with open curiosity. The one who's caused so much trouble? This is Elena Moretti, my strategist, my partner, and under my absolute protection. And the Stephanos' former asset, Don Carlisi added, former being the operative word. The Stephanos claim she stole proprietary information before fleeing, that she's betrayed family secrets. Alessandro's smile was knife-sharp. The Stephanos claim many things, most of them convenient lies designed to justify their own overreach. Elena spoke for the first time. I stole nothing. I learned their language, discovered I was being used, and relocated to territory where I'd be valued instead of disposable. Her voice was calm, factual. If the Stephanos consider that theft, perhaps they should reconsider how they treat their assets. Silence around the table. Then Don Carlisi laughed, genuine, surprised. She's got spine. I like that. She's got more than spine, Alessandro said. She's brilliant, and she's mine. Anyone who touches her declares war on the Marchetti family. The message was received. With the 5 families' tacit approval, Elena's position solidified. She wasn't just Alessandro's girlfriend. She was becoming part of the family infrastructure. Her code secured their communications, her algorithms optimized their logistics, her strategic mind identified opportunities and threats before anyone else saw them coming. And through it all, her relationship with Alessandro deepened. He taught her the family business, not just the code and technology, but the human elements. How to read a room, how to identify weakness, how to leverage fear and respect in equal measure. You're a natural, he said one night after Elena had negotiated a deal with a reluctant supplier. I learned from watching you. No, Alessandro pulled her close. You learned from surviving. I just gave you the tools to thrive. Their intimacy grew beyond physical. Alessandro shared things with Elena he'd never told anyone. Fears, regrets, the weight of running an empire built on violence. Elena shared her own ghosts, foster homes, abandonment, the loneliness of never belonging. They understood each other in ways that went deeper than passion. This was partnership, and it was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. But intimacy didn't protect them from external threats. The Stephanos were regrouping. Lucas's intel came regularly now. Movements, plans, weaknesses. Lucas. Matteo's planning something big, targeting Marchetti shipping routes. Lucas. Don Stephano approved to hit. Target unspecified but high value. Lucas. They're bringing in outside muscle. Russians maybe. This is escalating. Alessandro increased security, fortified positions, prepared for war. But Elena could feel the clock ticking. This couldn't last forever. Eventually, someone would break. The question was, who? The Stephanos weren't the only threat. Other families watched the Marchetti-Stephano conflict with calculating interest. Weakness was opportunity, and both families were showing cracks. Don Carlisi requested a private meeting with Alessandro. The Stephano situation is becoming problematic. They violated neutral ground, started this war. Perhaps, but prolonged conflict destabilizes all of us. Carlisi leaned forward. End this, Alessandro, one way or another. What are you suggesting? Make peace or make war, but make a choice, because if you don't, we'll make it for you. It was a threat wrapped in advice. Alessandro understood perfectly. That night, Alessandro called Elena to his study. She found him staring at city lights, shoulders tense. Carlisi gave me an ultimatum: end the Stefano conflict or face consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind where other families decide I'm more trouble than I'm worth. Alessandro turned to face her. I have 3 options: make peace with the Stephanos, go to war and finish them, or what? Or remove the source of conflict. Elena's blood ran cold. You mean me? I mean offering you back to them as a gesture of goodwill. You can't be serious. I'm not. Alessandro crossed the room, framed her face with his hands. I'd burn every bridge, fight every family, and reduce this city to ashes before I'd give you back to them. Then what are you saying? I'm saying I need you to marry me. Elena's heart stopped. What? Marry me, become my wife, make this official in every way that matters. Alessandro's eyes burned with intensity. Then you're not just under my protection, you're family, untouchable, permanent. That's not a proposal, that's a strategic alliance. It's both. He pulled her closer. I love you, Elena. I want you as my partner, my wife, my equal. But I also need the world to understand that you're mine in a way that can't be undone, that attacking you means attacking the Marchetti family. Elena's mind raced. Marriage to Alessandro meant safety. It also meant total commitment to this life, the violence, the danger, the impossibility of ever walking away. And if I say no, then I'll protect you anyway, but it'll be harder, more complicated. And if I say yes, Alessandro smiled, rare, genuine. Then you become the most dangerous woman in Boston. Elena said yes, not because she had to, not because she was trapped, because she wanted the power, the partnership, the future Alessandro was offering. The engagement was announced within 24 hours, not publicly, through the underworld channels that mattered. Elena Moretti would marry Alessandro Marchetti. She would become Donna Marchetti. She would be family. The response was immediate. Allied families sent congratulations, rival families sent carefully worded acknowledgments, and the Stephanos sent silence, which was its own message. Alessandro's mother, a woman Elena had met exactly once, insisted on helping with wedding preparations. My son doesn't do anything halfway, Donna Marchetti said, studying Elena with sharp eyes. If you're going to be family, you'll do it properly. The dress was custom Italian, outrageously expensive. White because Alessandro insisted. You're mine, he said, and I want everyone to see that clearly. Elena let the tailors measure and pin, let Alessandro's mother discuss flowers and venues, let the plans unfold around her. But privately, she was preparing for something else. War. Because marriage wouldn't stop the Stephanos, it would only escalate them. Lucas's messages became increasingly urgent. Lucas, weddings pushed Matteo over the edge. He's planning something big for the ceremony. Lucas, Don Stephanos given approval for a major move. Details unclear, but it's big. They've been acquiring weapons, military grade. This isn't a hit, it's a siege. Elena forwarded everything to Alessandro, who responded with his own preparations. The wedding venue was fortified, multiple security checkpoints, background checks on every vendor, armed soldiers disguised as staff. This is supposed to be a celebration, Elena said, watching preparations. It will be. Alessandro's arm wrapped around her waist. After we survive it. Alessandro's bachelorette party was less party, more strategy session. His inner circle gathered: Marco, key capos, allied family representatives. They reviewed security protocols, discussed contingencies, and prepared for every possible attack vector. Elena wasn't invited, but she listened through the door anyway, thanks to a bug she'd planted earlier. Old habits. The girl's smart, she heard one capo say. But is she worth a war? She's not just worth it. Alessandro's voice was steel. She's essential. Elena sees threats I miss, thinks 3 steps ahead. She's made our operations more efficient, more secure, more profitable. And you love her, Marco added quietly. That too. Elena's bachelorette party consisted of her, a bottle of wine, and her laptop. She was coding, another encryption upgrade, another security layer, because survival meant staying useful. Donna Marchetti found her like that, alone, working, armored in competence. This isn't how young women usually spend their last night of freedom. I'm not usual. No, Donna sat beside her. My son chose well. You're what this family needs. Smart, ruthless, practical. Is that a compliment? It's a warning. Donna's eyes held something Elena couldn't quite read. Love makes my son reckless. Don't let it make you weak. I won't. Good. Donna stood. Welcome to the family, Elena. Try not to get killed tomorrow. Elena woke before dawn on her wedding day. Alessandro was already gone. Tradition dictated they spend the night before apart. She showered, dressed, prepared. The dress fit perfectly, hair styled, makeup understated. She looked like a bride, felt like a soldier. Marco arrived at noon to escort her to the venue. Ready? Elena looked at her reflection one last time. The girl who'd loved Matteo Stephano was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, more dangerous. Someone who'd learned that power came from owning your choices, not from being chosen. Ready. The venue was a cathedral in the North End, historic, beautiful, Italian Catholic down to its bones. Security was everywhere, but invisible. Guests filed in, Marchetti family, allied families, business associates whose money came from illegal sources, but whose appearances were impeccably respectable. Elena walked down the aisle alone. No father to give her away. No foster family present. Just her, claiming her own future. Alessandro waited at the altar in a tailored tuxedo that made him look like old money and new danger combined. His eyes tracked her approach with an intensity that should have scared her. Instead, it felt like coming home. The ceremony was traditional, Latin prayers, incense, ritual, but the vows were anything but. I, Alessandro Marchetti, take you, Elena Moretti, to be my wife, my partner, my equal. His voice carried through the cathedral. I promise to protect you with everything I have, to trust your mind as much as I desire your body, to build an empire with you, not just for you. He slid the ring onto her finger. Platinum, understated, engraved with words only she would see. L'unica, the only one. Elena took a breath, met his eyes. I, Elena Moretti, take you, Alessandro Marchetti, to be my husband, my partner, my equal. She held his gaze. I promise to stand beside you in war and peace, to be as ruthless in love as you are in business, to build something permanent in a world designed to destroy us. Her ring onto his finger, platinum, matching, engraved, per sempre, forever. The priest blessed them in Latin. Alessandro kissed her, claiming, possessive, absolute, and Elena Moretti became Elena Marchetti. The reception was held at the Marchetti compound, a fortress disguised as an estate. Champagne flowed, music played, hundreds of guests celebrated. Elena danced with Alessandro, played the role of blushing bride, and watched the doors with tactical awareness, because Lucas's warning echoed in her mind. They're planning something for the ceremony. But the ceremony had been quiet, no drama, which meant the real threat was now. At 9 p.m., the gates to the compound opened. A convoy of black SUVs entered, uninvited, unexpected. The music stopped. Alessandro's hand found his weapon. The SUVs parked in front of the main house and men stepped out. Stefano men. Don Matteo at the front, flanked by soldiers. Behind them, Don Stefano himself. They were unarmed, required to enter the compound, but their presence was a threat in itself. Wedding crashers, Alessandro said flatly. How traditional. We come in peace, Don Stefano's voice carried across a suddenly silent crowd, to offer congratulations and discuss terms. Terms? of the truce we both need. The meeting happened inside, Don's only, with Elena and Matteo present as seconds. The tension was suffocating. Don Stephanos spoke first. My son was disrespected. Your woman humiliated him. By all rights, we should be at war. We are at war, Alessandro countered. No, we've been skirmishing. War would be significantly worse. Don Stefano leaned forward. I'm proposing we end this. Acknowledge that the girl chose you, that Matteo has moved on, and that continuing this conflict benefits no one. What do you want in exchange? Elena provides technical support for one major Stefano project as a gesture of goodwill between families. The room went silent. Alessandro's voice was ice. Absolutely not. It's reasonable. It's a caller. You want to claim authority over my wife, over Marchetti resources. Alessandro stood. The answer is no. Matteo spoke the first time. Then I want 5 minutes, alone, with Elena. Everyone turned to stare at him. Why? Elena asked. Because I never got closure, and I need to hear you say to my face that you chose him over me. It had to be a trap. Had to be. But Elena understood something the others didn't. Matteo needed his pride back, and maybe, just maybe, she could give it to him in a way that ended this without more bloodshed. 5 minutes, Elena said. Alone. Elena, Alessandro began. Trust me. Their eyes met, held. Then Alessandro nodded. Elena and Matteo stood on the terrace, far enough from others for privacy, close enough for safety. Matteo spoke first. I loved you. No, you loved having someone worship you. That's not... He stopped, swallowed hard. Fine. Maybe I didn't love you the way you deserved, but I did care about you, Elena. You were supposed to be my future. I was supposed to be your practice. Matteo flinched. You heard that. Every word. I'm sorry. Elena studied him, this man she'd loved for 10 years, who'd shattered her in one morning. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Both. Matteo ran his hair through his hair. I was an arrogant kid who thought he could have everything, the perfect girlfriend and the perfect conquest, and I lost both because I was stupid enough to realize what I already had. So this is about regret. This is about the fact that you married my enemy to punish me. I married Alessandro because he sees me as an equal, because he respects my mind, not just my body, because he'd burn the world before letting someone hurt me. Elena stepped closer. You wanted practice. He wanted me. That's the difference. Matteo's jaw clenched. And you love him? Yes. More than you loved me. Elena considered lying, making it easier. Instead, she chose truth. I loved you as a fantasy. I love him as reality. Something broke in Matteo's expression. Anger, grief, acceptance. I can't compete with that. No. So this is it. You're Marchetti now, untouchable, forever. Yes. Matteo nodded slowly. Then I guess I have to let you go. You never had me to begin with. I know that now. He extended his hand. Congratulations, Elena. I hope he makes you happy. Elena looked at his hand for a long moment, then shook it. Congratulations on Sylvia, by the way. I heard you're engaged. Matteo's smile was bitter. She's perfect, exactly what the family needs, but not what you want. What I want doesn't matter anymore. He released her hand. Be happy, Elena. That's the best revenge. He walked back inside, leaving Elena alone on the terrace. She'd just made peace with her past. Now she could fully embrace her future. When Elena returned inside, the meeting had progressed. Don Stefano looked resigned. Alessandro looked victorious. We've agreed to terms, Don Stefano said formally. The Stefano family acknowledges Elena Marchetti as Don Marchetti's wife and under full family protection. In exchange, minor territorial adjustments in neutral zones. And Matteo? Elena asked. Matteo has withdrawn his personal grievance. Don Stefano's voice was cold. He understands that pursuing this further would be Unproductive. It was over. Not with violence, with negotiation. Elena had learned enough about this world to know that was rarer than diamonds. Then we have a truce, Alessandro said formally. The Dons shook hands, brief, perfunctory. Then the Stephanos left, their convoy disappearing into the night. Elena and Alessandro stood in the suddenly quiet room. You did it, Alessandro said softly. We did it. No, he pulled her close. This was you, your choice to talk to him, your ability to give him closure. He kissed her temple. You're more than brilliant, Elena. You're strategic genius. I learned from the best. Flattery will get you everywhere, Mrs. Marchetti. Elena smiled, genuine, free. For the first time in months, she felt safe. They didn't return to the reception. Alessandro led Elena to his private quarters, now their quarters. The room was elegant, masculine, marked with evidence of his power. But tonight, power didn't matter. Tonight was about them. Alessandro undressed Elena slowly, reverently, not with the desperate hunger of their first time, but with the deliberate appreciation of someone claiming what was already his. My wife, he murmured against her skin. My husband. They made love with the windows open, city lights spilling across bare skin, the sounds of Boston, their territory, their empire, surrounding them. And for the first time in her life, Elena felt like she belonged, not because someone chose her, but because she'd chosen herself, and in doing so had found someone who chose her back, equally, absolutely, forever. Elena woke to Alessandro watching her again, but this time she didn't feel observed. She felt seen. What are you thinking? She asked. That I'm the luckiest bastard in Boston. Romantically lucky or strategically lucky? Both. He traced her collarbone. You made me better, Elena. Smarter, more careful, more human. You were always human. Was I? Sometimes I wonder. Alessandro's expression darkened. This life, it strips away humanity, makes you forget there's anything beyond power and survival. And now? Now I remember. He kissed her softly. Because you remind me. They stayed in bed until noon, talking, touching, planning their future. Not the empire's future, their future. Vacations they'd never take, children they might have, dreams that existed outside the violence of their world. It felt almost normal. Almost. They didn't take a traditional honeymoon. Leaving Boston for extended time was too dangerous. Instead, Alessandro rented out an entire luxury hotel on the harbor for a long weekend. 3 days where the world outside didn't exist, where Elena could be just a wife, not a strategist, where Alessandro could be just a husband, not a don. They swam in the rooftop pool, ate expensive food they barely tasted, made love like they had all the time in the world. And for those 3 days, the weight of their choices lifted. They were just Elena and Alessandro, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds, two people who'd built something permanent in a world designed to destroy them. On the last night, Alessandro presented Elena with a gift, a laptop, custom, encrypted, top of the line. For your graduate work, he said, and our work. Because even in paradise, their reality waited. Elena accepted it with a smile. Back to the real world tomorrow? Back to our world. Returning to Boston meant returning to responsibilities. Elena resumed her graduate coursework, now a graduate student, having accelerated through her undergrad with ruthless efficiency. Her research focused on AI applications in secure logistics, legitimate work that happened to have very illegitimate applications. Professor Chen praised her progress, Alessandro's family utilized her innovations, and Elena walked the line between both worlds with increasing confidence. She'd learned to be two people, the brilliant student who published papers and won academic awards, the Don's wife who made criminal enterprises untraceable. Both were her, both were real, and she refused to apologize for either. 6 months into their marriage, Alessandro brought Elena into full family operations, not as a consultant, as a partner. She attended strategy meetings, voted on major decisions. Her opinion carried weight equal to the most senior capos. Some resented it, most respected it, because Elena had proven herself not through family connection, but through results. Her systems had prevented 3 federal investigations. Her logistics algorithms had increased efficiency by 40%. Her encryption kept their communications secure when rival families fell. She was valuable, more than valuable, essential. And Alessandro made sure everyone knew it. "My wife," he'd say in meetings, "has identified a vulnerability in our northeastern operations. Not Elena found, or someone noticed. My wife." A title that carried the full weight of his protection and his respect. But not everyone accepted Elena's position. 6 months in, a couple named Vincent Russo challenged her directly in a family meeting. "With all due respect, Don Marchetti, your wife is 21 years old. What does she know about running operations?" The room went silent. Alessandro's expression turned murderous. But Elena spoke before he could. "You're right, Vincent. I'm young, inexperienced in traditional operations, but I also have 3 graduate degrees worth of education in systems optimization. I've rebuilt our entire digital infrastructure, and I've kept your nephew from federal prison by encrypting his communications after he was stupid enough to use an unsecured line." Vincent's face darkened. "That was a fact. Would you like me to continue listing facts, or would you prefer to acknowledge that my age is irrelevant to my competence?" Silence. Then Vincent nodded stiffly. "Your competence is noted, Donna Marchetti." The use of her title, Donna, the female equivalent of Don, was an acknowledgement of her position. Elena had won, not through Alessandro's protection, through her own force of will. The truce with the Stephanos held for 8 months. Then it shattered. Not because of Elena, because of territory. A shipping route both families claimed rights to became a flashpoint. Violence escalated quickly. A Stephano warehouse burned, a Marchetti lieutenant was found dead, and suddenly they were back at war. Full scale this time, no more skirmishes, no more restraint. Alessandro moved his entire operation to war footing, and Elena found herself on the front lines, not with guns, but with code. Elena's role in the war was digital warfare. She hacked Stephanos systems, disrupted their supply chains, intercepted their communications. She was a ghost in their network, dismantling their infrastructure 1 line of code at a time, and she was brilliant at it. Within 2 weeks, Stephano operations were in chaos. Shipments disappeared, money vanished from accounts, communications failed at critical moments. They had no idea how it was happening, but they knew who was responsible. Don Stephano called for a meeting, neutral territory, both Dons present. "Call off your wife," Don Stephano demanded. Alessandro smiled. "My wife operates independently." "Bullshit. You're using her to wage technological warfare." "I'm utilizing her skills, yes, but Elena chooses her targets. And apparently, she's very good at choosing them. This is escalating beyond what either of us can control." "Then surrender the shipping route." "Never." Then the war continues. Don Stefano's response was swift and brutal. He put a contract out on Elena Marchetti, not through official family channels, through independent operators who didn't care about family politics. $1 million for Elena Marchetti, dead or alive. The underworld lit up with the news. Alessandro went nuclear. Every family, every soldier, every associate spread the word. Anyone who accepts that contract declares war on the Marchetti family. Anyone who facilitates it dies. Anyone who provides intelligence on the contractors gets paid double. It was an unprecedented response, and it worked. Most operators backed off immediately. But not all. The attempt came 3 days later. Elena was leaving MIT's campus, late night after a research session. Marco was her driver, 2 armed guards in a follow car. Standard security. Not enough. The contractors were professionals, former military, trained in tactical operations. They hit the convoy with military precision, disabled the follow car with an EMP, forced Marco's car off the road, grabbed Elena before she could call for help. She fought. 3 months of self-defense training Alessandro had insisted on, but she was overpowered. They threw her in a van, zip-tied her hands, and disappeared into Boston traffic. Marco called Alessandro immediately. They took her. Alessandro's response was a single word: find her. Elena woke in a warehouse. Classic mob kidnapping location. 3 men stood guard, professional, armed, uninterested in conversation. She tested her restraints, zip ties, too tight to slip, calculated her options, limited. One of the contractors approached. Nothing personal, Mrs. Marchetti, just business. Business that'll get you killed. Maybe, but $1 million buys a lot of protection. Not from my husband. The contractor smiled. We'll be in South America before he finds this location. Elena had been trained for this. Alessandro had insisted after the restaurant trap. Trained in how to survive captivity, how to buy time, how to think clearly through fear. She took a slow breath and started planning. Alessandro mobilized every resource. Marco coordinated with allied families. Technology teams tracked every traffic camera, every cell tower ping, every digital footprint the contractors had left. And Lucas, still feeding intelligence from inside Stephano territory, provided crucial information. Lucas: warehouse in Dorchester, abandoned shipping facility, 3 contractors, no backup. You have maybe 2 hours before they move her. Alessandro didn't waste time. He assembled a team, his best soldiers, Marco, and himself, because this was personal. They hit the warehouse like a military operation. Silent approach, strategic positioning, overwhelming force. The contractors never had a chance. Alessandro killed 2 himself. Marco handled the 3rd, and then Alessandro was cutting Elena's restraints, pulling her against him with shaking hands. You're safe. I have you. You're safe. Elena collapsed into him, adrenaline crashing, fear finally allowed to surface. I knew you'd come. Always. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Always, Elena, no matter what. The kidnapping changed everything. Alessandro became obsessed with Elena's safety, to the point of paranoia. He wanted her to stop attending MIT, stop going anywhere without a full security detail, stop being visible. Elena refused. I won't hide. You almost died. I've been almost dying since the day I walked into your world. Elena's voice rose to match his. I won't let fear make me invisible again. I spent 21 years invisible, Alessandro. I'm done. Then let me protect you. You are protecting me, but protection doesn't mean prison. They fought for days, not with violence, with words, with fear, with the desperate terror of 2 people who'd found something precious and nearly lost it. Finally, they compromised. Elena would continue at MIT, would maintain visibility, but security would triple. She'd never be alone, and she'd wear a tracker that Alessandro could monitor 24/7. It wasn't perfect, but it was survival. Alessandro's retaliation against Don Stefano was biblical. He didn't just target the contract, he targeted everything. Stefano businesses burned, key soldiers were arrested on suddenly discovered evidence, supply chains collapsed. Within 2 weeks, the Stefano empire was hemorrhaging money and credibility. Don Stefano had no choice but to call for peace. Real peace this time. Not a truce, not a temporary ceasefire. Complete cessation of hostilities. Alessandro's terms were brutal. The shipping route belonged to the Marchettis. Don Stefano would publicly acknowledge that the contract on Elena was unauthorized and voided himself. And Matteo Stephano would deliver a formal apology to Elena. In person, witnessed. It was designed to humiliate. And Don Stefano, with his empire crumbling, accepted. The meeting happened at a neutral restaurant, different from the trap, but similar enough to make everyone nervous. Matteo arrived looking older, harder, resigned. He'd married Sylvia 3 months ago. Word was it was loveless but strategic, perfect Mafia wife material. Elena sat across from him, Alessandro's hand possessive on her thigh under the table. Matteo spoke formally, the words clearly rehearsed. On behalf of the Stephano family, I apologize for the unauthorized contract placed on your life. It was an overreach that violated the terms of our truce and endangered both families unnecessarily. Accepted, Elena said simply. Matteo's eyes met hers, briefly, painfully. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're alive. Because you still care, or because my death would have started a war you'd lose? Both. At least he was honest. Elena nodded. Then we're done here. Matteo stood, started to leave, then paused. Alessandro. Alessandro looked up, expression dangerous. Take care of her. She deserves that much. I know exactly what she deserves. Alessandro's voice was ice, and I give it to her, daily. Matteo left without another word, the last remnant of Elena's past finally buried. 2 years after arriving in Boston, Elena graduated from MIT, top of her class, multiple research awards, job offers from every major tech company. She turned them all down because she already had a job, running digital operations for the Marchetti family, officially titled as a security consultant for Marchetti Holdings, their legitimate business arm, actually functioning as the most technologically advanced criminal strategist in the Northeast. Alessandro attended her graduation, proud, possessive, impossible to miss in the crowd of academic families. How does it feel, Dr. Marchetti? He asked afterwards. I have a master's, not a doctorate. Maybe not, but give it 2 years, you'll have the PhD too. Maybe I don't want one. Maybe. Or maybe you want to build something bigger. Like what? Like everything. Elena built everything. Over the next year, she revolutionized Marchetti operations, created a cryptocurrency system that made money laundering obsolete, developed logistics software that optimized every route, every delivery, every operation, built a communications network that was unhackable, untraceable, perfect. The Marchetti family became the most technologically advanced crime organization in North America. Other families came calling, wanting to buy her systems. Alessandro charged premium prices. And with Elena's innovations making them millions, the Marchetti empire expanded into territories they'd only dreamed of. New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, all coordinated through Elena's systems. She was 23 years old, and she was the most powerful woman in organized crime. Not through marriage, through brilliance. 3 years after their wedding, Alessandro made Elena an official offer. I want you as my underboss. Elena looked up from her laptop. What? Underboss, second in command, official position in the family hierarchy. Alessandro sat beside her. You've earned it. Everyone knows you run half the operations already. This would make it official. Women don't hold that position. Women didn't hold a lot of positions until they did. Alessandro took her hand. You're not just my wife, Elena. You're my partner, my equal, and I want the family structure to reflect that. Marco's your underboss. Marco's my consigliere now. The position's open. Elena considered. Underboss meant power, official authority, visible leadership. It also meant an even bigger target on her back. What does Marco think? Marco thinks you're the smartest choice I could make. And the other capos? Some will resist, most will accept because they're smart enough to know that you've made them all richer and safer. Alessandro's thumb traced her wedding ring. This is your choice, Elena. No pressure, but know that I believe you can do this.
Elena took a breath, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. Elena's formal installation as underboss happened at a family meeting, all capos present, soldiers standing witness. Alessandro announced it himself. Effective immediately, Elena Marchetti assumes the position of underboss. Her authority is second only to mine.
Her orders are my orders. Disrespecting her is disrespecting me. Some faces showed surprise, others resignation. A few showed open approval. No one protested, because Alessandro had made it clear this wasn't up for debate. Elena stood beside him, dressed in expensive Italian tailoring, her expression calm and certain. "I know some of you have doubts," she said clearly, "about my age, my gender, my outsider status. Those doubts are fair, but results matter more than credentials, and my results speak for themselves." She outlined her vision for the next year: expansion plans, new revenue streams, security upgrades. Strategic, ambitious, achievable. By the end, even the skeptics looked convinced. Vincent Russo, the capo who'd challenged her years ago, stood. "Welcome, Underboss Marchetti. I look forward to working with you." Others echoed the sentiment. Elena had been crowned, not through marriage, through merit. News of Elena's promotion spread quickly through the underworld. Most families responded with careful neutrality. The Stephanos responded with fury. Don Stefano called it an insult to tradition. Matteo was notably silent, but someone else spoke up. Sylvia Dawson Stephano, now Matteo's wife of 3 years, mother of his infant son, and apparently harboring her own ambitions. She requested a meeting with Elena. Neutral territory, just the two women. Alessandro was against it. It's a trap. Maybe, or maybe it's the beginning of something interesting. Like what? Like the wives of two rival families finding common ground. Alessandro looked skeptical, but didn't forbid it, because he'd learned that Elena's instincts were usually right. Elena met Sylvia at an upscale restaurant in neutral territory, Cambridge, far from both family strongholds. Sylvia arrived looking every inch of the Mafia wife: designer clothes, expensive jewelry, perfectly styled. But her eyes were sharp, calculating. Mrs. Marchetti, Mrs. Stephano. They ordered wine neither would drink, and food neither would eat. Then Sylvia got to the point. "You've done something remarkable. Become underboss. Claimed real power in a world that doesn't give it to women. Is that why you wanted to meet? To congratulate me?" "No, I wanted to meet because I'm trying to do the same thing." Sylvia leaned forward. "Matteo's weak. His father's dying. Someone needs to hold the Stephano family together, and the men won't do it." Elena understood immediately. "You want to be Don. I want to be something, more than decorative wife and baby machine." Sylvia's voice was bitter. "You proved it's possible. I want to know how." Elena studied this woman, Matteo's wife, the woman he'd wanted instead of her, and saw not a rival, but a potential ally. "You be indispensable, smarter than them, more strategic, more ruthless when necessary." Elena's voice was quiet. "And you never, ever apologize for it." Sylvia absorbed that. "And if they push back, you push harder." They talked for 2 hours, not about their family's rivalry, about power, strategy, the particular challenges of being women in a man's world. By the end, they'd formed an unlikely alliance. Not friendship, understanding. And in their world, that was almost more valuable. 4 years into their marriage, Elena discovered she was pregnant. She stared at the positive test for 10 minutes, processing. A baby. In this world, with this life. She told Alessandro that night. His reaction was immediate. Joy, fear, protectiveness dialed to 11. "We need to increase security, move you somewhere safer, reduce your exposure." "Elena, stop. You're carrying my child, our child. I need to keep you both safe." "You will, but I'm not disappearing for 9 months." "Elena, I'm still underboss, still running operations. I'll be careful, but I won't be sidelined." They fought about it, compromised eventually. Elena would reduce travel, increase security, work from secure locations when possible, but she wouldn't stop working. Couldn't, because she'd built an empire alongside Alessandro, and she refused to abandon it. Pregnancy changed Elena's role subtly. She couldn't be on the front lines anymore, couldn't risk the baby. So she became even more strategic, running operations remotely, coordinating from secure locations, building systems that didn't require her physical presence, and discovering she was even better at it. Distance gave perspective. She saw patterns others missed, made connections that close proximity obscured. By her second trimester, the Marchetti family was more profitable and more secure than ever, and Elena had proven that power didn't require physical presence, just intelligence and will. Elena went into labor during a family meeting. Appropriate, really. Alessandro rushed her to a private hospital, Marchetti-owned, Marchetti secured. Labor lasted 14 hours. Alessandro didn't leave her side once. And at 4:37 a.m., Elena gave birth to a daughter. Small, perfect, beautiful. They named her Isabella, after Alessandro's mother. And when Alessandro held his daughter for the first time, Elena saw something she'd never seen before. Her ruthless, dangerous husband crying. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's ours." Isabella Marchetti, born into violence, protected by power, the next generation of an empire built on blood and code. Motherhood didn't slow Elena down. She took 2 weeks off, then went back to work. Isabella came with her, protected by a team of guards, cared for by vetted staff, raised in the family compound where danger was managed and controlled. Elena juggled conference calls and diaper changes, strategic meetings and bedtime routines, code reviews and lullabies, and she was brilliant at all of it, because she'd learned long ago how to be two things at once: soft and hard, loving and ruthless, mother and underboss. Alessandro watched her navigate it with awe. How do you do it? Do what? Everything. Be everything. Elena looked at her daughter, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Because she's watching, and I want her to know that women can be powerful and present, ruthless and loving, that we don't have to choose. You're lucky to have her. We're lucky to have us both." Isabella was 6 months old when the Stephanos made their final play. Don Stephano was dying, cancer, advanced. His empire was in transition. Matteo was weak, Sylvia was ambitious, the family was fractured. And in their desperation, they made one last attempt to reclaim lost territory by targeting the Marchettis. Not through violence, through law. Federal investigators suddenly had evidence of Marchetti operations, detailed, specific, damning. Someone had flipped, turned informant, given everything to the FBI, and the Marchetti empire was about to burn. The raids happened simultaneously. Legitimate businesses, family homes, known associates. The FBI came with warrants and overwhelming force. Alessandro was arrested on RICO charges. Marco, 3 capos, dozens of soldiers. And they tried to arrest Elena. She was nursing Isabella when they arrived at the compound. Federal agents, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Elena handed Isabella to her nanny, put her hands up, and spoke calmly. "I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment rights and requesting my attorney. I will not be answering any questions." They arrested her anyway. Perp walked her out of her own home while her daughter screamed. Elena and Alessandro were processed separately, held in separate facilities, denied contact. It was designed to break them, make them turn on each other. But they'd prepared for this possibility, had lawyers on retainer, contingency plans, systems in place. Elena said nothing during interrogation, gave her name, confirmed her identity, then invoked her Fifth Amendment rights, repeatedly, for hours. The federal prosecutor tried everything: threats, promises, leverage. "Your daughter needs her mother. Cooperate and you'll be home tonight." Elena stared at him with dead eyes. "I want my lawyer." They had nothing on her, no physical evidence, no digital trail, no recorded conversations, because Elena had built the systems that kept them all safe, and she'd built them too well. After 72 hours, they released her, kept Alessandro, but released Elena on bail. Elena walked out of federal custody and immediately began working, not to free Alessandro, though that was the goal, to find the rat. Someone had given detailed information to the FBI. someone inside. Elena spent days reviewing communications, tracking movements, analyzing patterns, and found the leak.
Vincent Russo, the capo who challenged her years ago, who'd supposedly accepted her authority, who'd been selling information to the FBI for 18 months. Elena brought the evidence to Marco, now running family operations with Alessandro detained. Vincent's the informant. Marco stared at the proof, face darkening. How do you want to handle it? Carefully. If we kill him, he becomes a martyr and the FBI gets more aggressive. Elena's mind raced. We need to discredit him first, make his testimony worthless. How? Elena smiled, cold, calculated. By proving he's a liar about everything, including his testimony. Elena orchestrated Vincent's downfall with surgical precision. She leaked information to the media, carefully curated, demonstrating Vincent's history of false statements, financial crimes, personal betrayals. She had lawyers introduce evidence in court, showing Vincent had fabricated evidence in previous cases. She discredited every statement, every piece of testimony, every claim he'd made. Within 2 weeks, Vincent Russo's credibility was destroyed. The federal prosecutor's case collapsed, and Alessandro was released pending trial, a trial that would likely never happen without their star witness. The moment Alessandro walked out of federal detention, Elena was waiting. They didn't speak, just held each other while cameras flashed and lawyers managed the press. "Thank you," Alessandro whispered against her hair. "We protect each other. That's the deal. Forever. Forever." Vincent Russo disappeared 3 days later. No body was ever found, but the message was clear. Betray the Marchetti family and you cease to exist. Elena didn't ask what happened to him. Didn't need to. Some things were better left unknown. Instead, she focused on rebuilding. The federal investigation had damaged their operations, exposed weaknesses, created vulnerabilities. Elena spent months reinforcing systems, improving security, making them truly untouchable. And when she was done, the Marchetti empire was stronger than ever, built on a foundation so secure that not even federal prosecutors could crack it. Charges against Alessandro were formally dismissed 8 months later. Insufficient evidence, tainted witness, procedural violations. Legal speak for they had nothing. The family celebrated, massive dinner at the compound, key allies present, Isabella toddling between relatives who adored her. Alessandro raised his glass. "To my wife, who saved us all." "To Elena," the room echoed. Elena stood, Isabella in her arms. We saved each other. That's what family does. Later, in the privacy of their quarters, Alessandro pulled Elena close. "I was terrified," he admitted, "the whole time in detention. Terrified I'd lose you and Isabella, that they'd find something, use something. They couldn't because I made sure there was nothing to find." "You're terrifying, you know that." Elena smiled. "I learned from the best." Don Stefano died 2 months after the federal investigation concluded. His empire collapsed within weeks. Matteo couldn't hold it together. Too weak, too indecisive. Sylvia tried, launched a desperate bid for power, but without capital, without support, without the infrastructure Elena had built for the Marchettis, she failed. The Stephano territories were absorbed by other families. Matteo and Sylvia fled to Florida, living off what money they'd managed to hide. The great Stephano empire, reduced to nothing. Elena felt no triumph, just the quiet satisfaction of having survived when they hadn't, of having been smart enough, ruthless enough, strategic enough to win. 5 years after arriving in Boston, Elena Marchetti was 26 years old, underboss of the most powerful crime family in the Northeast, mother to Isabella, now 2, and already showing signs of inheriting her mother's intelligence, wife to Alessandro, partner in crime and empire. She'd come to Boston with nothing, built everything,
and in doing so had become exactly what she'd promised herself that night in the library bathroom. Someone who would never be anyone's practice again. Someone powerful in her own right. Someone who'd taken control of her own story. The call came on a random Tuesday. Unknown number, Boston area code. Elena almost didn't answer. Then instinct made her pick up. Hello? Elena, it's Matteo. Her blood ran cold. She hadn't heard his voice in years. What do you want? To apologize. Really apologize. Not the formal bullshit my father made me say. His voice was tired, broken. I destroyed my life trying to prove I didn't need you, and I was wrong. Elena walked to the window, looked out at her territory, her empire. And I wanted you to know that you won. Completely. You're everything I pretended to be. I know. A laugh, bitter, defeated. Of course you do. You always knew, didn't you? Even back then you knew you were better than me. I knew I deserved better than being someone's practice. Silence on the line. Then, I hope you're happy, Elena. I really do. Because at least one of us should be. He hung up before she could respond. Elena stood at the window for a long time, processing. Then she deleted the call from her history and moved on. Some ghosts weren't worth haunting her anymore. Alessandro found her there, Isabella playing with blocks nearby. Who called? Matteo, calling to concede defeat. And nothing. He's irrelevant now. Elena turned to face her husband. We won, Alessandro. Actually won. Built something permanent. We did. He pulled her close. What do you want to do with that victory? Keep building. Make Isabella's inheritance something she can be proud of. Create an empire that lasts generations. Ambitious. I learned from you. They stood together, watching their daughter, planning their future. Not the violent, desperate future of survival, the powerful, intentional future of empire. That night, Elena stood in Isabella's room watching her daughter sleep. 2 years old, perfect, innocent, born into violence but protected by power. Elena thought about the girl she'd been, foster kid, invisible, desperate for someone to choose her, and the woman she'd become, underboss, wife, mother, architect of an empire. The journey had been brutal, violent, transformative, worth it, because she'd learned the most important lesson. Power wasn't given. Love wasn't earned by being chosen. You took power, you chose yourself, and everything else followed. I'll teach you that, Elena whispered to her sleeping daughter, how to be powerful and kind, ruthless and loving, how to never let anyone make you small. Behind her, Alessandro appeared, wrapped his arms around her waist. She'll be extraordinary, like her mother, like both of her parents. They stood there watching their daughter, their future, building something permanent in a world designed to destroy them. 5 years, 1 federal investigation, multiple wars, and Elena Marchetti was still standing, still powerful, still choosing herself every single day. The Stephanos were gone. Rival families respected her authority. The empire was secure. And in the quiet moments, between strategy sessions and family dinners, Elena sometimes thought about the girl she'd been, who'd loved Matteo Stephano for 10 years, who'd believed one night could change everything, who'd discovered the difference between being chosen and choosing yourself.
That girl was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, harder, more dangerous. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge wasn't violence. It was becoming everything they said you couldn't be, and then surpassing it. On the 6th anniversary of her arrival in Boston, Elena stood in Alessandro's study, now their study, reviewing security reports. Isabella played in the corner, building elaborate structures with blocks. Alessandro worked at his desk, handling legitimate business. Marco knocked, entered with updates on West Coast operations, the mundane work of running an empire. And Elena realized this was happiness. Not the fairy tale she'd imagined with Matteo. Not soft or safe or simple, but real. Built on partnership, respect, mutual ruthlessness tempered by love. "What are you smiling about?" Alessandro asked. "Just thinking about how far we've come." "We?" "We." Elena crossed to him, kissed him softly. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "You could have. You're brilliant enough." "Maybe, but I wouldn't have wanted to." Because that was the truth. She'd come to Boston for revenge, stayed for power, and found something more permanent. Home. Not in a place, in a person who saw her completely and loved her anyway, who'd burned the world before letting someone hurt her, who'd built an empire with her, not just for her. "I love you," Elena whispered. "I know," Alessandro murmured back. "That's why you're still here." Elena's phone buzzed. Lucas, checking in from his new life in California, protected by Marchetti resources, finally free. Lucas, "How's the empire?" Elena, "Thriving. How's retirement?" "Boring, but safe. Thanks for that, little sister." Elena, "Thank you for the warnings. We're even." She set her phone down, looked around the study, evidence of power, legacy, permanence. At 26, Elena had accomplished more than most people did in a lifetime, and she wasn't done. "Ready for dinner?" Alessandro asked. "Always." They gathered Isabella, headed to the family dining room where Marchetti capos and their families waited. Sunday dinner, tradition, family, the life Elena had built from nothing. That night, after Isabella was asleep and the compound quiet, Elena stood on the terrace overlooking Boston, her city, her territory, her empire. She'd arrived here with $3,000 and a laptop. Now she controlled millions and commanded respect from the most dangerous men in America. The girl who'd been practiced had become the woman everyone feared. The foster kid who'd never belonged had built a family that would last generations. And Matteo Stephano, the boy she'd loved for 10 years, was just a memory of who she'd been before she learned to choose herself. Alessandro joined her, pulled her against his chest. "Any regrets?" Elena thought about it honestly. The violence, the danger, the permanent stain on her soul. No. Not even a little? Not even a little. She turned in his arms, met his eyes. "I'd make every choice again, including you. Especially me. Especially you." They kissed under stars that witnessed empires rise and fall, violence and love, power and permanence. And somewhere in Florida, Matteo Stephano scrolled through news articles about Marchetti expansion and tried not to think about the girl he'd lost, the practice who'd become perfection, the angel who'd transformed into something far more dangerous. If this story found you when you needed it, pass it on to someone who understands that some love stories are written in blood and sealed with sacrifice. If you've ever been caught between the monster you should fear and the man you can't stop wanting, you belong here. Subscribe so these stories keep finding the people who need them. And if you want to know what happens next, if Isabella inherits her mother's mind and her father's ruthlessness, if the empire Elena built survives the next generation, if love forged in violence can ever truly be peaceful, tell me in the comments. Because in this world, nothing is ever truly over. The Marchetti Empire stands. Elena's legacy is written in code and blood. And somewhere, a girl is learning that being chosen is nothing compared to choosing yourself. Elena Marchetti closed her laptop, security protocols engaged, empire secured. At 26, Elena had become legend, the girl from nowhere who conquered Boston, the practice who'd become perfection, the woman who'd learned that power isn't given, it's taken. And she was just getting started. Because empires aren't built in years, they're built in generations. And Elena had all the time in the world.